The morning sky above Earth looked peaceful. Birds flew between the clouds while people went about their daily lives in cities below. Nobody knew that 200 alien warships were moving toward their planet. The ships belonged to the Draconian Empire, a powerful force that ruled 3 star systems with iron claws. Fleet Commander Zexathara stood on the bridge of his flagship. His scales gleamed dark green under the ship's lights. His yellow eyes looked at Earth through the viewing screen with disgust. The planet seemed so small and weak. The humans living there had barely learned to travel between planets. Their technology looked like toys compared to Draconian weapons. "Commander, we are in position," said his second officer. "All ships report ready for attack." Zexathara smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "These humans think they are safe on their little world. They will learn what happens when lesser species refuse to bow to the Empire." On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee at the Defense Command Center. Jake was 32 years old with brown hair and green eyes. He had flown more space missions than any other pilot in the Earth Defense Corps. The coffee was still hot when alarms started ringing throughout the building. "All personnel to battle stations," came the announcement over the speakers. "Unknown ships detected approaching Earth." Jake dropped his coffee cup and ran to the command room. The large screen showed radar images of ships coming closer. Too many ships, way too many ships. Admiral Peter Hayes walked into the room. He was an older man with gray hair who had served in the military for 40 years. His face looked calm, but Jake could see worry in his blue eyes. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" Admiral Hayes asked. 200 confirmed, sir," replied the young officer at the radar station. "They're big ones, too. Much bigger than anything we have." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Earth Defense Corps had only 50 ships, and most of them were small fighters. Going against 200 enemy warships would be like fighting a dragon with a stick. Dr. Lisa Carter hurried into the command room carrying a tablet computer. She was a brilliant scientist with red hair and sharp brown eyes. Lisa worked for the Strategic Analysis Division, but Jake had never been sure what they actually analyzed. "Admiral, I'm getting strange readings from the approaching fleet," Lisa said. Her voice sounded excited and worried at the same time. "Their energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. Aliens," Admiral Hayes said quietly. "We always knew this day might come." The main screen flickered and changed. The face of Fleet Commander Zexathara appeared, looking down at them with cold yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Primitive. Humans of Earth," Zexathara began. "I am Fleet Commander Zexathara of the Draconian Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 72 of your hours to surrender completely. All weapons must be destroyed. All military personnel must report for processing. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." The screen went black. The command room fell silent except for the quiet humming of computers. Jake looked around at the other officers. Everyone seemed frozen in shock. 200 alien warships wanted them to surrender in 3 days, or they would destroy all human life on Earth. "Sir, what are our orders?" Jake asked. Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. He seemed to be thinking about something important. Finally, he turned to Lisa. "Dr. Carter, I need you to begin immediate analysis of their communication systems. Find out everything you can about their technology." "Already on it, Admiral," Lisa replied. She was typing rapidly on her tablet. "But sir, there's something else. I'm detecting energy spikes from several locations around the world. Deep underground installations that shouldn't exist." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Underground installations? What kind of installations?" Lisa looked confused. "I don't know. According to these readings, they're massive and old. Really old. But they're powering up right now, as if they're responding to the alien threat." Admiral Hayes's expression didn't change, but Jake noticed his hands tighten slightly. "Focus on the alien fleet for now, Doctor. We'll worry about everything else later." Over. The next hour, reports came in from around the globe. The Draconian ships had positioned themselves in orbit around Earth. They were scanning major cities and military bases. Every government on the planet was trying to figure out what to do. Jake spent the time reviewing Earth's defenses. It didn't take long. They had defensive satellites around the planet, a few space stations, and their small fleet of fighters. Against 200 advanced alien warships, it would be like throwing rocks at tanks. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Hayes called, "I need you to prepare our pilots for possible combat operations." "Sir, with respect, we don't stand a chance against that fleet," Jake said. "Maybe we should consider negotiating." "Negotiating with slavers? Never works, Captain. The Draconians don't make deals with species they consider inferior. They conquer or they destroy." Lisa looked up from her tablet. "Admiral, I'm picking up more energy readings. Whatever those underground installations are, they're definitely responding to the alien presence. The power levels are unlike anything I've ever seen." "How is that possible?" Jake asked. "We would know if there were major installations under our cities." Admiral Hayes walked to the window that looked out over the city. His reflection showed in the glass as he spoke. "There are many things about human history that aren't in the regular textbooks, Captain. Sometimes the most important secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight." Before Jake could ask what that meant, another alarm sounded. The main screen showed new radar contacts. More ships were arriving. The Draconian fleet was growing larger. Zexathera's voice came through the speakers again. "Humans, you now have 60 hours to comply with our demands. Any attempt to resist will be met with immediate retaliation. We suggest you use this time wisely." Jake looked at the screen showing all those enemy ships. Each one could probably destroy a human city by itself. 200 of them could turn Earth into a lifeless rock. But something felt wrong about the whole situation. Admiral Hayes seemed too calm for someone facing the end of humanity. Dr. Carter kept getting readings from installations that supposedly didn't exist, and there was something in the Admiral's voice when he mentioned secrets hidden in plain sight. As Jake prepared to brief the other pilots, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to this situation than anyone was telling him, and the next 60 hours would either see humanity's surrender or its destruction. But Jake had a strange feeling that maybe, just maybe, there was a third option that nobody was talking about yet. The countdown to humanity's deadline had begun, and somewhere, deep beneath the Earth's surface, ancient systems that had waited for millennia were finally starting to wake up. 48 hours had passed since the Draconian ultimatum. Earth's governments had tried everything. They sent messages offering to negotiate, but the aliens ignored them. They asked for more time, but the Draconians only laughed. The countdown continued, and now humanity had less than a day before the alien fleet would begin destroying their world. Jake Morrison stood in the pilot briefing room, looking at 24 other pilots. These were the best fighters Earth had, but Jake knew it wouldn't be enough. The odds were impossible. 200 alien warships against 25 human fighters. It was like sending paper airplanes against jet fighters. "Listen up, everyone," Jake said. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably a suicide mission. The enemy has weapons and shields we can't match, but we're all that stands between those ships and 8 billion people on Earth." The pilots looked nervous, but none of them backed down. A young pilot named Tony Garcia raised his hand. "Captain, what's our battle plan? How do we fight something that much bigger than us?" Jake looked at the tactical display showing the Draconian fleet. The alien ships were arranged in perfect formation above Earth's North Pole. Each ship was 10 times larger than the biggest human vessel. "We hit them fast and try to cause as much damage as possible. Maybe we can make them think twice about destroying Earth if we hurt them enough." But even as Jake spoke, he didn't believe his own words. The human fighters carried missiles that might scratch the paint on alien ships. The Draconians had weapons that could melt cities. In her laboratory, Dr. Lisa Carter stared at her computer screens in amazement. The energy readings from the underground installations were getting stronger by the hour. Whatever was down there was preparing for something big. "This doesn't make sense," she said to herself. "These power signatures are off the charts. Where is all this energy coming from?" She tried to access military databases to find information about the underground facilities, but every file was classified at levels she had never seen before. Even her high security clearance wasn't enough. Lisa picked up her phone and called Admiral Hayes. Admiral, I need to know what's happening underground. The energy readings are incredible. It's like someone built entire cities beneath our feet, and they're all powering up at once. Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Doctor, some things are above your clearance level. Focus on the alien fleet. That's where we need your expertise right now. But sir, this could be important for the battle. If we have some kind of secret weapons or technology, the pilots should know about it. The pilots will know what they need to know when they need to know it, Admiral Hayes said firmly. Trust me, Doctor. Everything is proceeding according to plan? Lisa hung up the phone feeling frustrated. According to plan? What plan? As far as she could tell, the plan was to send their tiny fleet against impossible odds and hope for a miracle. High above Earth, Fleet Commander Zexathera watched the human preparations with amusement. His sensors showed the primitive fighters gathering near one of their space stations. 25 small ships against his mighty fleet. It would be over in minutes. Commander, the humans are launching their fighters, reported his weapons officer. Let them come, Zexathera replied. When we destroy their pathetic fleet, the survivors will know the price of defying the Draconian Empire. Jake Morrison climbed into his fighter and ran through the pre-flight checklist. The ship was called the Falcon, and it was the fastest fighter in the Earth Defense Corps. But speed wouldn't matter much against alien weapons that could track targets across solar systems. As Jake prepared to launch, something strange happened. The controls in his cockpit flickered for a moment, and he felt a weird tingling sensation in his hands. For just a second, the instrument panel looked different, as if it had extra systems he had never seen before. Must be pre-battle nerves, Jake told himself, but the feeling was hard to shake. All fighters, this is Admiral Hayes, came the voice over the radio. You are cleared for launch. Remember, you're not just fighting for Earth. You're fighting for the future of humanity itself. The 25 human fighters launched from their stations and moved toward the Draconian fleet. Jake led the formation, his heart pounding as they approached the massive alien ships. Spread out and attack their outer ships first, Jake ordered. Maybe we can pick off a few before they organize their response. But as the human fighters got closer, something impossible began to happen. The first Draconian ship they targeted simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. One moment it was there, a huge warship bristling with weapons. The next moment, there was empty space. Did anyone see what happened to that ship? Tony Garcia asked over the radio. I don't know, Jake replied. It just disappeared. More Draconian ships began vanishing, not exploding, not breaking apart, just ceasing to exist as if they had never been there in the first place. Zexathera watched his fleet shrinking with growing panic. What's happening? He roared at his officers. Where are my ships going? Unknown, Commander, replied his science officer. They're not being destroyed, they're just vanishing from all sensors. No debris, no energy signatures, nothing. Jake found himself flying maneuvers he had never learned. His hands moved over the controls automatically, as if someone else was guiding them. The weird tingling sensation was getting stronger, and his fighters seemed to be responding to thoughts instead of commands. Around him, other human pilots were experiencing the same thing. Their fighters were moving in perfect coordination, performing impossible flight patterns that should have torn the ships apart. But instead of falling apart, the human vessels seemed to be getting stronger and faster. More Draconian ships vanished. 20 gone, 50 gone, 100 gone. Zexathera tried to order a retreat, but his ships couldn't move. Something was holding them in place, preventing them from jumping to hyperspace. Commander, we're trapped, his navigator reported. The hyperspace drives won't engage. It's like something is blocking our escape. In the Defense Command Center, Admiral Hayes spoke quietly into a special communicator that none of the other officers had seen before. Phase 1 complete. Initiate Phase 2 protocols. Dr. Lisa Carter stared at her instruments in shock. The energy readings from underground were so high they were breaking her sensors. Whatever was happening beneath Earth's surface was beyond anything in human science textbooks. On his ship, Zexathera watched helplessly as more vessels in his fleet simply stopped existing. His communications officer tried to contact the vanishing ships, but there was no response. It was as if they had been erased from reality itself. "This is impossible," Zexathera whispered. "Humans are a primitive species. They barely have spaceflight. How are they doing this?" Jake Morrison flew his fighter through the middle of the Draconian fleet, but no alien weapons fired at him. The remaining enemy ships seemed frozen in space, unable to respond to the human attack. Jake's fighter moved faster than it should have been able to go, and he found himself knowing things about space combat that he had never learned. By the end of the battle, the entire Draconian fleet had vanished. 200 massive warships had simply ceased to exist, leaving no trace they had ever been there. The human fighters regrouped near their space station, their pilots confused about what had just happened. Jake looked at his instruments, but they showed normal readings again. The strange controls he thought he had seen were gone. The tingling in his hands had stopped. It was as if the last hour had been a dream. All fighters returned to base, Admiral Hayes ordered. Mission accomplished, but Jake knew the mission hadn't been accomplished by anything he or his fellow pilots had done. Something else had destroyed the Draconian fleet. Something hidden, something powerful, something that Earth wasn't supposed to have. As the human fighters returned home, Jake wondered what other secrets his planet might be hiding. 3 days after the Draconian fleet vanished, ships from the Galactic Council arrived at Earth. The Council was like a government for all the different alien species in the galaxy. They had come to investigate what happened to 200 warships that had simply disappeared without a trace. Investigator Kyle Nara stood on the bridge of her science vessel, looking at Earth through the viewing screen. She was from a species called the Veltar, with blue skin and large black eyes that could see things other species missed. Kilanara had investigated strange events across the galaxy for 50 years, but she had never seen anything like this. "Run another deep scan of the area," she told her science officer. "Look for any trace of the Draconian ships, debris, energy residue, anything." The science officer, a tall being with 6 arms, worked at multiple control panels at once. "Nothing, investigator. It's like the ships were never here. No weapon signatures, no explosion patterns, no hyperspace trails. They just stopped existing." Kyle Nara frowned. 200 massive warships don't just disappear. There should be something left behind. Even if the ships had been completely destroyed, there would be tiny pieces of metal floating in space. But her sensors found nothing at all. On Earth, Jake Morrison sat in a medical chair while doctors ran tests on him. Ever since the battle, he had been having strange dreams and memory gaps. He remembered launching his fighter and approaching the alien fleet, but everything after that was fuzzy. "Captain, your brain scans show unusual activity," said Dr. Robert Kim, the military's head medical officer. "There are areas lighting up that normally stay quiet. It's like parts of your mind that were sleeping have suddenly woken up." Jake rubbed his temples. He had been getting headaches since the battle. "Doc, I keep having these dreams where I'm flying ships I've never seen before. Big ships, powerful ships. And I seem to know how to use weapons that don't exist." Dr. Kim made notes on his tablet. Several other pilots are reporting similar symptoms: memory gaps, strange dreams, and headaches. We're trying to figure out what's causing it. In her laboratory, Dr. Lisa Carter was having her own strange experiences. Her security badge had started giving her access to files she had never seen before. Files marked with security levels that she didn't know existed. Lisa opened one of the files on her computer. The title read, "Terran Heritage Project, Classification Level Omega." "Terran Heritage Project?" Lisa said to herself. "What's that supposed to mean?" She began reading the file, and her eyes grew wide with shock. According to the document, humans were not native to Earth. The file claimed that humanity had been placed on Earth thousands of years ago by an advanced civilization. But the most shocking part was the suggestion that humans were descendants of that same advanced civilization. Lisa scrolled through pages of genetic data, star charts, and archaeological evidence. If the file was telling the truth, then everything She thought she knew about human history was wrong. Her phone rang. It was Admiral Hayes. "Dr. Carter, I need you to come to Sublevel 15 immediately," the Admiral said. "Sublevel 15? I didn't know the building went down that far." "There are many things about this facility you don't know, Doctor. Please come alone." Lisa took the elevator down past the lowest level she had ever visited. The elevator kept going down, past levels she never knew existed. When the doors finally opened, she found herself in a corridor that looked nothing like the rest of the building. The walls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, symbols that hurt her eyes to look at directly. The corridor felt old, much older than the building above. Admiral Hayes was waiting for her at the end of the corridor. Behind him was a massive door that looked like it had been sealed for centuries. "Admiral, what is this place?" Lisa asked. "This is one of the heritage sites, Doctor. There are dozens of them around the world, hidden beneath major cities. They've been waiting for the right time to activate." "Waiting for what?" Admiral Hayes placed his hand on a scanner next to the door. The scanner read his palm and then pricked his finger to take a drop of blood. The massive door began to open with a sound like thunder. "Waiting for humanity to remember who we really are," Admiral Hayes said. Beyond the door was a room that took Lisa's breath away. It was enormous, bigger than a football stadium. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps of galaxies she didn't recognize. In the center of the room was a control station that looked more advanced than anything human science had ever created. "This technology is impossible," Lisa whispered. "We don't have the knowledge to build something like this." "We didn't build it recently," Admiral Hayes explained. "This facility is over 10,000 years old. It was built by our ancestors before they went into dormancy." Lisa stared at him. "Dormancy? Admiral, you're not making sense." Admiral Hayes walked to the central control station and placed his hand on a glowing panel. Immediately, holographic displays filled the air around them, showing images of space battles, star maps, and species from across the galaxy. "Humanity didn't start on Earth, Doctor. We came from somewhere else, somewhere far away. Our people once controlled territory spanning multiple galaxies. But something happened, something that made our ancestors decide to hide." The holographic displays showed images of humans with abilities that seemed impossible. They showed human ships that could travel between galaxies in seconds. They showed human scientists who could manipulate space and time itself. Our ancestors scattered themselves across many worlds and went into a kind of sleep. They changed their own genetics to hide their true abilities. They built places like this to wait for the day when humanity would need to wake up again. Lisa looked at the incredible technology around her. The Draconian fleet. That's what triggered this awakening? When our world was threatened, the dormant systems activated. Jake Morrison and the other pilots didn't destroy those ships with their fighters. They accessed abilities they didn't know they had. The ships were transported to a place where they can be studied safely. Meanwhile, aboard her investigation ship, Kalanara was interviewing human officials about the missing fleet. Every human she spoke to seemed genuinely confused about how they had defeated such a powerful enemy force. "We just did our best," Jake Morrison told her during his interview. "I honestly don't remember much about the actual battle. It's all kind of blurry." Kalanara studied Jake carefully with her enhanced vision. She could see that he was telling the truth about not remembering, but she could also see something else. There were patterns in his genetic structure that she had seen before in ancient ruins across the galaxy. After the interview, Kalanara returned to her ship and accessed the Galactic Historical Database. She searched for information about a mysterious species that had vanished from the galaxy long ago. A species called the Ancients, who had built technology that modern civilizations still couldn't understand. As she read through the old records, a terrible possibility began to form in her mind. The genetic patterns she had seen in the human pilot matched perfectly with samples taken from ancient ruins. The energy signatures from Earth matched readings from ancient technology sites. "It's not possible," Kalanara whispered to herself. "The Ancients disappeared 50,000 years ago. They can't be the same species as these primitive humans." But as she looked at the evidence, the impossible truth became clear. Humanity and the ancients were the same species. The most powerful civilization the galaxy had ever known hadn't disappeared at all. They had hidden themselves on a small planet and pretended to be a young, developing species. Kilnara realized that the Draconian fleet hadn't been destroyed by primitive human weapons. They had been eliminated by technology so advanced that it made the rest of galactic civilization look like children playing with toys. The question was, what would humanity do now that their secret was starting to come out? Dr. Lisa Carter stood in the ancient chamber deep beneath Earth's surface, trying to understand what Admiral Hayes had just told her. The holographic displays around them showed impossible things. Ships that could cross galaxies in minutes. Technology that could move planets. Humans with abilities that seemed like magic. "This can't be real," Lisa said, staring at the images. "If humans had this kind of power, why would we hide it? Why pretend to be a weak species?" Admiral Hayes touched another control panel, and the displays changed to show something that made Lisa's heart race. The images showed Earth itself, but not the Earth she knew. This Earth was surrounded by massive space structures. Cities floated in the clouds. The oceans glowed with energy from underwater installations. "Because, Doctor, our ancestors learned that unlimited power without wisdom leads to destruction. They chose to sleep until humanity was ready to handle the responsibility." As Lisa watched, she felt something changing inside her own mind. Genetic markers that had given her access to the classified files were activating more of her dormant abilities. Suddenly, she could understand the alien symbols on the walls. She could read the advanced mathematics in the holographic displays. Knowledge that had been locked away in her DNA was flowing back into her consciousness. "It's happening to me too," she whispered. "I can understand things I never learned. I know how this technology works, even though I've never seen it before." "Admiral," Hayes nodded. "The awakening process is different for everyone. Some people remember gradually, like you. Others have sudden moments of complete recall. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was experiencing one of those sudden moments. He was in his apartment trying to sleep when his mind suddenly exploded with memories that weren't his own. Or were they? Jake saw himself as a child, but not on Earth. He was standing on the deck of a ship the size of a moon, looking out at stars he didn't recognize. He remembered training to pilot vessels that could reshape reality itself. He remembered being part of something called the Guardian Corps, an elite group of humans who protected the galaxy from threats beyond imagination. But the memories weren't just his. They belonged to his ancestors, passed down through genetic codes that had been sleeping in his DNA for thousands of years. Jake Morrison wasn't just a pilot for Earth's Defense Corps. He was the descendant of beings who had once been the most powerful guardians in the universe. Jake sat up in bed, his hands shaking. He looked at his reflection in the window and saw something different in his eyes. They seemed deeper now, older, as if they held the wisdom of ages. His phone rang. It was Admiral Hayes. "Captain Morrison, I need you to report to Sub-Level 15 immediately. It's time you learned the truth about what you really are." Across the galaxy, other humans were having similar awakenings. On Mars colonies, human settlers suddenly remembered how to operate terraforming equipment they had never seen before. On space stations around Jupiter, human workers found themselves understanding ancient alien technology that had puzzled scientists for decades. But the most dramatic awakening happened on a mining station near Pluto. A human engineer named Ben Clark was working on a broken power generator when his genetic memories activated. Suddenly, he didn't just know how to fix the generator. He knew how to rebuild it into something far more powerful. Ben's hands moved without conscious thought, rewiring systems and adding components that shouldn't have worked together. When he was finished, the generator wasn't producing enough power for the mining station. It was producing enough power for a small city. "What did you do?" asked his supervisor, staring at the impossible energy readings. Ben looked at his hands in amazement. "I don't know. I just knew what to do." Similar events were happening all over human space. Engineers were improving technology beyond theoretical limits. Scientists were solving problems that had puzzled humanity for centuries. Doctors were healing injuries that should have been impossible to treat. In the heritage site beneath Earth, Admiral Hayes showed Lisa Carter records that explained everything. Our ancestors didn't just hide on Earth, he explained. They seeded dozens of worlds with human colonies. Every human settlement in the galaxy has people carrying the dormant genetic codes. When the awakening began here, it triggered awakenings everywhere. Lisa studied the records with her new understanding. The data showed a vast network of human colonies, all connected by genetic programming that could activate across interstellar distances. "How many humans are there really?" she asked. "Billions," Admiral Hayes replied. "Far more than any other species realizes. We've been living among them, working with them, learning from them, all while carrying the potential to surpass them completely." On her investigation ship, Kyle Nara was receiving reports that made no sense. Human colonies across the galaxy were suddenly displaying technological capabilities that broke known laws of physics. Humans were solving engineering problems that had stumped the greatest alien minds. They were building things that shouldn't be possible with current galactic technology. Investigator, her communications officer, reported, "We're getting messages from archaeological teams throughout the galaxy. They're saying that human workers at ancient dig sites suddenly know how to operate the technology they've been studying for years." Kyle Nara felt a chill run through her blue skin. If humans could operate ancient technology, it meant they weren't just related to the ancients. They were the ancients. Back in the heritage site, Jake Morrison arrived to find Dr. Carter and Admiral Hayes surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. But these weren't normal star charts. These displays showed hidden human installations throughout space, secret bases that had been dormant for millennia, and technology networks that connected human colonies across impossible distances. "Captain," Admiral Hayes said, "meet the real Earth Defense Network." Jake stared at the displays in shock. What he had thought was humanity's entire space presence was actually just a tiny fraction of human capabilities. The real human civilization was vast beyond imagination, hidden in plain sight throughout the galaxy. "The Draconian fleet," Jake said quietly. "We didn't destroy them, did we?" "No," Admiral Hayes confirmed. "We transported them to a parallel dimension where they can be studied safely. The technology to do that has been sleeping in our genetics for 10,000 years. You accessed it without even knowing what you were doing." Dr. Carter looked at readings from around Earth. "Admiral, the planet itself is changing. I'm detecting massive structures rising from the ocean floors. The energy signatures are incredible." Admiral Hayes smiled. "Earth isn't just hiding human descendants, Doctor. Earth itself is one of our ancestors' greatest creations. The planet is waking up." Through the heritage site's viewing screens, they could see the ocean beginning to glow. Ancient cities were rising from beneath the waves, cities that had been hidden for millennia. The sky filled with lights as orbital platforms that had been invisible suddenly revealed themselves. Jake watched in amazement as Earth transformed before his eyes. The planet he thought he knew was becoming something magnificent and impossible. "What happens now?" he asked. Admiral Hayes looked at the displays showing human awakenings across the galaxy. "Now, Captain, humanity remembers who we really are, and the galaxy is about to learn that the most powerful civilization in the universe never disappeared. We were just taking a very long nap." The awakening had spread across the entire galaxy. On thousands of worlds, humans were remembering abilities they never knew they possessed. Ancient human installations were powering up after 10,000 years of sleep. The galaxy was about to learn a truth that would change everything. Investigator Kyle Nara stood on the bridge of her ship, watching reports flood in from every corner of known space. Human colonies were transforming before the eyes of shocked alien observers. Simple mining operations were becoming advanced research facilities. Basic trade stations were revealing themselves as sophisticated monitoring posts. "Investigator," her communications officer said with fear in his voice, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's being broadcast to every ship and planet in the galaxy." Kyle Nara nodded grimly. She had been expecting this moment. "Put it on the main screen." Admiral Peter Hayes appeared on screens throughout the galaxy. He stood in what looked like a command center beyond anything alien science had achieved. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps of multiple galaxies, not just the one they all knew. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Hayes began, his voice calm but carrying incredible authority. "It is time you learned the truth about humanity." On his flagship, now returned from the parallel dimension, Fleet Commander Zexathara watched the transmission with growing horror. He and his crew had spent what felt like days in that other place, being studied by beings of impossible power. Now he was learning that those beings had been humans all along. "For the past 50,000 years," Admiral Hayes continued, "you have known us as a young species, recently discovering space travel, eager to learn from older civilizations. This was not the truth. This was a choice our ancestors made to protect both ourselves and you." The transmission showed images that made alien viewers across the galaxy gasp in shock. Ancient ruins that every species had studied for millennia were revealed to be human constructions. The hyperspace lanes that allowed faster-than-light travel had been built by human engineers. Even the fundamental technologies that powered galactic civilization showed clear signs of human design. Jake Morrison stood beside Admiral Hayes, no longer the simple pilot he had been a week ago. His genetic memories were fully awakened now, and he remembered lifetimes of experience as a guardian of human space. He wore a uniform that seemed to be made of living light, and his eyes held depths of knowledge that spoke of eons. "The species you called the Ancients," Jake said, addressing the galaxy, "never disappeared. We chose dormancy. We scattered ourselves across thousands of worlds and suppressed our own abilities because we had learned a terrible lesson about absolute power." Dr. Lisa Carter, now fully awakened to her heritage as a keeper of knowledge, activated holographic displays that showed the true history of the galaxy. Every major advancement in alien science, every breakthrough in technology, every leap forward in civilization had been quietly guided by dormant humans who didn't even know what they were doing. "Your languages contain human linguistic patterns," Dr. Carter explained. "Your mathematics follow principles we established. Your understanding of physics is based on discoveries our ancestors made and then chose to forget." The transmission showed footage of Earth's transformation. The planet that aliens had known as a simple world with basic technology was revealed in its true form. Massive cities rose from the ocean depths, their spires reaching into space. Orbital platforms the size of moons became visible as their cloaking systems deactivated. Earth itself pulsed with energy patterns that dwarfed the power output of entire star systems. But the most shocking revelation came when Admiral Hayes opened a portal in space itself. Through the portal, alien viewers could see the Draconian fleet intact and unharmed, floating in a carefully constructed pocket dimension. "We did not destroy your ships, Commander Zexathara," Admiral Hayes said, speaking directly to the Draconian leader. "We moved them to a place where they could be studied without harm to your crews. You have been our guests, not our prisoners." Zexathara appeared on the transmission, his proud features now showing something aliens rarely saw in Draconians: humility. "I came to conquer a primitive world," Zexathara said slowly. "Instead, I discovered that my entire species, my entire empire, exists only because humanity allows it. We are children playing with toys you gave us long ago." Across the galaxy, the implications were sinking in. Every alien species realized that their greatest achievements were pale shadows of what humans had been capable of for millennia. The most advanced alien technologies were based on principles that sleeping humans had developed without conscious thought. But Admiral Hayes had more to reveal. "We did not just guide your technological development," he said. "We seeded life itself on hundreds of worlds. Every species listening to this transmission exists because our ancestors decided that the galaxy should be filled with diverse life, rather than remaining empty." The holographic displays showed the truth that made even investigator Kilnara, with all her experience, stagger in shock. Humans hadn't just influenced galactic civilization, they had created it. Every species, every world, every living thing in known space could trace its origins back to human genetic engineering and terraforming projects. "We are not your conquerors," Jake Morrison added. "We are your parents. And like any good parents, we stepped back to let our children grow and develop on their own." The transmission showed human installations throughout the galaxy coming online. On every world where aliens had found mysterious ancient ruins, those ruins were revealing themselves to be active human monitoring stations. The galaxy was discovering that it had never been alone, never been unprotected, never been without guidance. Dr. Carter activated another display. "But our dormancy period is ending. The threat of the Draconian fleet triggered our awakening protocols. Humanity is remembering what we are, and we must decide what to do with that knowledge." Admiral Hayes looked directly into the transmission cameras, addressing every being in the galaxy. "We offer you a choice. You can continue as you have, with humanity returning to dormancy and guiding you from the shadows as we have for millennia. Or you can join us as true partners, learning to develop the potential that we placed in your genetic codes long ago." The transmission showed that every species in the galaxy carried dormant human genetic markers, the potential for incredible abilities, for technologies beyond current imagination, for lifespans measured in millennia rather than decades. All of it was there, waiting to be awakened by teachers who had perfected these abilities eons ago. "We built this galaxy to be a garden where intelligence could flourish," Admiral Hayes concluded. "We created you to be our companions, not our subjects. The choice of what comes next belongs to all of us together." As the transmission ended, the galaxy fell into a stunned silence. Every government, every military, every individual being had to come to terms with the same overwhelming truth. Humanity wasn't just the most powerful species in the galaxy. They were the reason the galaxy existed at all. Investigator Kyle Nara sat down heavily in her command chair. Her entire career had been spent studying mysteries that turned out to have simple explanations. Humans had been the answer to every question, the solution to every puzzle, the creators of every wonder. Fleet Commander Zek Zathara looked at his fleet, now returned to normal space but forever changed by what they had experienced. His empire, which he had thought was mighty, was revealed to be nothing more than a small part of humanity's vast design. But perhaps the most profound change was happening to humans themselves. Across the galaxy, ordinary people were discovering they were descendants of gods. Farmers were remembering how to terraform worlds. Teachers were accessing educational techniques that could upload entire libraries into a student's mind in minutes. Children were playing games that other species would consider advanced physics experiments. The age of humanity's sleep was ending. The galaxy would never be the same again, and somewhere in the depths of space, in dimensions beyond normal understanding, the true scope of human civilization was beginning to reveal itself. The garden that humanity had planted was about to bloom, in ways that would make the current galaxy seem like a single flower in an infinite field of wonders.